the number 10 pick, giving the Cincinnati Bengals Dexter Lawrence, who's a very good defensive tackle. So sometimes what the Giants did, you got to take a step back to build your culture. Dexter Lawrence is really good. Didn't have a great year, but he's really good. And he wants a fortune. And what John Harbaugh is saying is, we're not going to be held hostage. It's not a great defensive tackle draft. It's not. You're not going to find anybody in the draft as good as Dexter Lawrence. It's an edge draft, some good wide receivers, some good offensive tackles. It's not a great defensive tackle draft, but this is not a Super Bowl team. This team needs 5 or 6 guys from this draft who can play. I think it's a good team. This is not a Super Bowl team. Even the areas of the Giants where their fans think, ugh, we are set, like offensive tackle. Andrew Thomas can't stay on the field at left tackle. Your right tackle, you probably overpaid him. He's a journeyman. He'll be pressed into left tackle duty at some point, and then you'll be a mess at both tackles. So the reality is the Giants need depth of talent. And my takeaway, this move was about Jackson Dart's timeline. Now you say, well, what about the Bengals? They're on Joe Burrow's timeline, and Burrow's had 3 surgeries. And the Bengals are cheap, and Burrow's pissed off, and he has been for 3 years. So the Bengals are like, okay, we're wearing our Dockers. We don't make a lot of moves here in Cincinnati. Let's go for it. You know who was happy with this move? Joe Burrow. Because the last 3 years, in total defense, the Bengals have been dead last. And they just went and got an elite defensive tackle. He fits Cincinnati's timeline. There's not a defensive tackle in this draft nearly as good as Dexter Lawrence, but he doesn't necessarily fit the timeline of Jackson Dart. Everything about this football team is about getting young, cheap, and flexible on defense, the New York Giants, and getting offensive play. It could be Scatterboot, could be Neighbors, it could be another receiver, it could be another right tackle in the building. So this just goes to show you, I like Dexter Lawrence a lot. He did not have a great year. And by the way, the Giants were like awful against the run, surrendered 5.3 yards a run with him. But they've got players around him that maybe they'll eventually have to pay. They just don't want to be hostage to a player right now as they're setting their culture. The Bengals culture, for whatever it is, cheap, frugal, underachieving, they've got their culture set. The Giants don't.
Yeah. So, first off, let me just say right at the outset that I love this for the Giants. I want to be extremely clear about that. But saying that Dexter Lawrence doesn't fit the timeline of Jackson Dart, I'm not so sure about that, because the whole thing is that when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract, right? We always say that you have a rookie deal, you want to build the roster around him, spend as much money as you can because you don't have to pay your quarterback a huge amount. And now you're in an interesting situation where if you build 100% through the draft, you're going to have to start paying everyone at the same time, and it's like, oh, what do we do here? And in a lot of ways, that's sometimes how the Dallas Cowboys get themselves into a bit of trouble, because it's just that seemingly everyone needs to get paid simultaneously, and you're like, oh, what do we do right now? But with all that said, I really like this because I do think the Giants are multiple pieces away from what they're looking to build. And now you're able to enter this draft with 2 first-round picks, and you have Harbaugh guiding you. That's big. That's significant. You brought Harbaugh in to be your leader, to be the person who is not only the coach of your franchise, but he is the leader of your franchise. He is the one who is putting this team on track, putting this franchise on track. Putting the things in motion to become a great team again, to become a top contender again. And one of the best ways to do that is to say, okay, we're entering the draft right now. We've got 2 first-round picks. What do you see? How do we go about doing this? And I think it's a great position to be in from that perspective. To me, that's exactly what you would want to do. Now, it's interesting because you could look at a team like the Chicago Bears. They bring in their new coach, and so on, and they spent money in free agency, built out the offensive line. You saw they had clear-cut objectives they were looking to accomplish, and then they draft a fence, and they draft a tight end, and so on and so forth. And you're like, okay. And seemingly the Giants are taking a slightly different approach. But the Bears are losing an offensive lineman now, lost a wide receiver, they traded him, so they got compensation obviously, but it's like, okay, they have to retool now and kind of rework what they've done. And if the Giants play their cards right, best case scenario, and as long as they actually do it appropriately and actually are smart about how they do it, unlike what the Cowboys do, you find yourself in a situation where you kind of resemble the 22, 23, 24 Cowboys, where you're like, we've got awesome young talent. Our biggest problem is how do we pay everyone? And as long as you pay everyone early, because it will be slightly staggered with when it's time to pay a Jackson Dart versus any of these other future picks. And you work void years, as well as strategically use fifth-year options, etc., etc. That's just what the Texans actually did. I've been meaning to make a separate video about that. The fifth-year option kind of kicks the salary cap hit down the road a little bit, but then it also coincides kind of perfectly with, though now you're going to have to pay C.J. Stroud. If C.J. Stroud is your quarterback, you're going to have to pay him $55 million plus. So when you look at the other players, you're like, wow, almost half the cap goes to like these three players. And that makes things hard. But if they didn't do the fifth-year option and just paid him immediately, it all depends on whether you think you can win now versus whether you think you'll win later. What is the timeline? We always talk about a Super Bowl window, but really you have to figure out the timeline. When are you ready to win right now? When are you ready to win right now? When are you ready to win right now? And so not only do you also end up saving money in a move like this because the money that gets carried over, I forget what the exact percentage is. I used to know it off the top of my head, but you have to spend something like 88% of the salary cap in a moving 3-year window. I think it's 88%. I forget. Again, it's definitely high. You have to spend the bulk of it. But then this continues to free up space so that when this team is ready to win, not only do you have some younger players on good deals, but then when it is time to really evaluate what this team needs, you'll have the money to spend in free agency. You'll also now, as this 3-year floating window continues to move along, you'll also have a better idea of who you're ready to pay right now. Who you need to be able to say, okay, the guy we drafted in 25 or 26, let's get this locked up. Or we know, okay, next year in 28, we have to set this aside. It does give you a flexibility that we saw the Chicago Bears lack this offseason. And it was kind of like, okay, why are the Bears not doing anything right now? And it's like, well, because they honestly actually really can't. Like they're actually kind of a little bit handcuffed. Now, it's always a moving target. Having these types of discussions about money, that's why they were talking about Trey Hendrickson versus Dexter Lawrence and the Bengals and the Giants and doing this and that. It is always the ultimate moving target because anytime you try to predict the future too much about what a cap hit is going to look like for the team as a whole, and how much money you have in free agency, it's so hard to know. Who are they looking to extend? What are they doing with the fifth-year option? Franchise tag? Who are they looking to move on from? Who can they cut? How much dead cap are they willing to take? It becomes so hard. They can restructure deals, void years. It becomes really difficult to actually really know what the situation is here. And you make one move, and it frees up an insane amount of space. And so in a lot of ways, the Giants, it feels like they're just kind of front-loading that flexibility. And the reason why I supported both what the Bears did and what the Giants did, obviously in 2 separate years, you really need to figure out who the heck Caleb Williams was. And can you get this to work? There you really were kind of like, what is happening here? Being the number 1 overall pick, supposed to be this generational talent, and you're kind of like, what's happening here? And it was all hands on deck, got to get this offense going, got to figure it out, got to figure it out, got to figure it out. Jackson Dart, I don't think there's that same level of urgency of, we got to figure out if Jackson Dart is the next generational quarterback of our lifetime. There's a lot of belief in Jackson Dart, and you do recognize he was a rookie last year. The team was a bit of a mess, offensively, coaching all over the place, culture all over the place. You're bringing in Harbaugh, bringing in Nagy, you're just here to get resituated. You're not here to light the league on fire. You're here to just get everything back on track. And if you overachieve, great problem to have. In a lot of ways, you could make the argument that the Patriots overachieved. They were just trying to get everybody back on track. You have that. Then year 3, aka year 2 with Harbaugh and Jackson Dart, you're like, alright, we have this space, we have this mobility, we have this flexibility. Where do we need to go from here? What do we need? And it just opens up a lot more doors to make decisions when they're arguably at their most important. You have the most flexibility when you're really going to be tested with what path we are about to walk down. If we make the right moves, we're a great team, we're an elite team, we're a top team in the NFL. If we make the wrong moves, we take a turn. So you're not kind of then forced. That's again, different timelines and different reasons, but you can see that with the Cowboys where it was like, okay, if the Cowboys just made the right moves at the right times, you could argue that they would still have everyone they need. They'd have CD Lamb, George Pickens, Micah Parsons, etc., right? And it would be great. If they just kind of did everything on a smart timeline, then last year wouldn't have been a wasted year. They could have had a great defense last year, a great offense, and then who knows? But they made poor decisions. They made poor decisions in their own timeline and trajectory. We've seen it with the Bengals making poor decisions. We've seen the Chiefs make the right decisions. We've seen the Eagles make the right decisions. Right? We've seen them. Look at the Commanders. The Commanders spent a whole bunch of money and they were like, hey, we really believe that everything's going to work out his year. And then they all got injured, and it was like, Now it's kind of like, did they tie up too much money in different areas? What did they have to do to adapt? As I said, the Bears are technically paying the consequence, and that makes it sound too extreme, but you kind of have to reap what you sow there. And again, it's not to say that the Bears aren't in a good situation to continue to win or compete, but things get a little bit tighter, things get a little bit harder. And I think a move like this just ultimately gives the Giants the maximum amount of space to make the decisions when they need to make the decisions. And that ultimately is where it lands for me, especially when you're bringing in a new coach like Harbaugh, who you're trying to reinstill a culture, get this team back on track, figure everything out, and go from there. So it's going to be really exciting and interesting to see what the Giants have in store. Those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you all think about the New York Giants? Do you think this was a smart move for them? Do you think they should have kept Dexter Lawrence? I mean, honestly, I already read all the comments from when this news first broke on just all the random social media posts and stuff like that, and it just seems like again, all the fans, everyone in the comment section, could not be any happier for the Giants, and are absolutely positively dunking on the Bengals. So it just seems like very loudly, very supportive of what the Giants are doing here. So, curious for your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some debates, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here. I'd absolutely love to see you be part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing that. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.